Okay folks, joined by Brian Harris, drummer extraordinaire, and we're going to begin the interview. First question, Brian. When did you begin playing? What year did you begin playing?
Well, I started playing drums when I was somewhere around 2 or 3 years old.
Whoa.
My parents bought me a little, well, actually I started off on buckets and cardboard boxes and things like that.
Like a real drummer.
What's that?
Like a real drummer always does.
Yeah. Peanut butter buckets and just whatever I could get my hands on. And then my dad, well, I don't know which came first, the snare drum or the Remo practice pad kit. But right around age 3, 4, somewhere around there, I had a little Remo practice pad kit followed by a snare drum. And then by the time I hit age 7, I finally got my first full drum kit.
Wow. What make was the kit, the first kit?
It was a Slingerland.
Aha.
I still have that kit. It's a blue. It's about the color of my water bottle here, and it's a blue Slingerland. It was actually, I have an older brother named Steve, and he plays drums, and it was his old drum kit.
Okay.
And, so I'm not really sure how old it is. I would say it's definitely from the early 80s, possibly the late 70s.
Excellent. Sounds good. And how many pieces was on the kit?
5 piece.
Excellent. Cymbals?
Yeah. I mean, back then I don't remember what I had, but
yeah.
back when I was 7, 8 years old, it was just whatever.
I know.
Probably a mix of different brands as well as a mix of quality. Cheap ones, good ones. I don't even have any of those old ones that I had back then.
Okay, we'll move on to the next question. Kind of a deep one, this one. Why did you begin playing, and what drew you to being a drummer? Well, now that you've told me that you started when you were just a kid, that question doesn't really work. But what drives your passion for playing, and what keeps you doing it?
Well, I can tell you that what got me into playing drums really was just being in a musical family.
Yeah.
So it was just natural for me to pick up some kind of instrument. So, and having seen my older brother play drums and my other older brother, my oldest brother, play guitar, and my dad is a trombonist, my mom taught piano. Wow. So music, I've just come from a very musical family. Therefore, I was destined to play something, and so I must have just shown interest with drums at an early age.
Cool, excellent.
So, yeah. But to answer your question, the rest of your question, what keeps me, what drives me to play? I just like probably most musicians, just love music. Just love the passion that you can pull out of music. Just how it makes people feel.
Cool.
It's just a good release, especially being a drummer. If you're angry, you're having a bad week, stressful week. It's great to be able to beat on something instead of someone.
I see.
And it's just a good release. And of course, I picked the instrument that takes the most to set up and tear down and travel with, but I don't regret it at all.
It's a necessary evil.
Exactly.
Brilliant. Great answer. I never asked you at the start, are you a full-time player or do you do a day job as well?
Well, I do have a day job. It's actually my own business, and I'm actually a wedding DJ. So on the weekends I put on, throughout the week I've got meetings and such, and then on weekends I'll put on the tuxedo and serve as an MC and DJ at someone's wedding, which is quite contrasting to the death metal side of me, or just but it's all related. So it's all musically related. Obviously, as a DJ, I'm playing music, recorded music, but my life revolves around music. But I do play in enough bands to consider drumming to be like a job as well. It's not just one band I play with. I play with multiple bands.
Absolutely.
And so that keeps me busy. But it also, because of my day job, because of my business, which pays the bills, that kind of takes priority over being able to just play anytime or to be able to jump on a tour and go on a tour. So unfortunately, I have to pay my bills. I got to feed my family. That's not unfortunate, but meaning unfortunately, I have that has to take priority over just jumping on a tour or booking any gig. My bands all know my schedule, so when they have an opportunity to play a gig, they contact me first. I feel horrible about it, but they know that if I'm not available, then there's no sense in going any further. But
that's just the way it is. I think anybody that plays in a metal band, it's the same way. You contact each other, and it's like, are you available? And then, depending on the availability of the band, you can either do the gig or you can't. That's the way it is. Okay, moving on. Tell us about your drums, your equipment, and why you chose to use that what would you call it, brand of drums. Now, I know you play a Sonar with the cover band, and you play a Mapex most of the other time. So if you could just speak a little bit about the equipment that you use and why you chose that equipment.
Well, we'll start with the Sonar kit. I really only use that kit for my Iron Maiden tribute band called Aces High. Because I tried to replicate Nico's drum kit as best as possible. Yeah. And that is my biggest kit. I bought that kit back in 1993, and it was a double bass kit, 5 rack toms, 1 floor tom, and obviously for an Iron Maiden tribute, I'm using one bass drum. But Nico has 8 rack toms, and I had 5, so I was like, I gotta find 3 more of the same exact brand. It's a Sonar Force 3000, which they don't make anymore.
Okay.
And it's just, but like I said, it's from the 90s, and so I got online and checked eBay and found a guy that had a couple. Well, he had a white Force 3000 kit, just like I have. But he had just a 5-piece, and he was selling the rack toms. I'm sorry, he was selling the whole kit, but selling them individually. And I decided that I'm going to just buy these rack toms. So now I went from 5 rack toms to 7. So I still need 1 more to really replicate Nico's kit completely.
Excellent.
But that's that kit. So then my Mapex kit. It's definitely my favorite kit. It's just a beautiful looking kit, beautiful sounding kit, and it is a Mapex Saturn Pro.
Right.
They don't call them Saturn Pro anymore. They just call them Saturn, the Saturn series. But I got that kit I bought it in 2011, but it was from 2006, I believe. I think it was. I bought it from a guy down in Dallas, Texas. A friend of mine that was getting rid of it, and it's the kit that goes out to, other than the Aces High gig, it's the kit that goes out with me all the time.
Cool.
And it is a 6-piece kit, 3 racks, 1 floor, 1 kick, and but I still use a double bass pedal for that.
And
for
what
that kit.
And what brand of bass pedal do you use?
I use a Tama Iron Cobra Junior.
Ah.
Yeah. I've got a regular Iron Cobra, but the Junior, it was the first one I ever tried. I found a guy that was selling the regular Iron Cobra on a local, kind of like eBay. I don't know if they have. Do they have Craigslist where you're at?
Craigslist? No, I've never heard of Craigslist, but I might look it up.
Craigslist is basically a local online place to sell stuff, kind of like eBay, but more local. But anyways, I found a guy that had a regular Iron Cobra and bought that from him just because he was like $50.
Cool.
So the first time I ever tried out an Iron Cobra Junior was in the studio borrowing somebody else's, and I fell in love with it, and I was like, man, I got to get me one of these, and I did, and I didn't like it as much as I liked the guy that I was borrowing it from. I tried to get him to trade my brand new Iron Cobra for his used, and he was going to do it, but it never happened.
And was
must have just been the way he had it set up or something.
yeah, it was probably the settings, but
Yeah.
I played an Iron Cobra for 15 years, and I'm just wondering, like, what settings are on it that could have been different. I suppose the angle of the beater, but there's not much else, is there? The spring tension, maybe?
Spring tension, yeah, spring tension really. Yeah, I mean, when I borrowed his kit, his pedal, and was playing on the kit that I was playing on in the studio. In fact, I think it was the Mapex kit that I have, because I bought it from the guy that owns the studio. So the combination of those two, I was like, man, I'm doing stuff that I've not been able to do in a long time or ever. So
Wow.
it just felt really good.
Yeah.
But I've had the Iron Cobra Juniors for I probably got them around 2003 or 4 or 5, somewhere around there. So I've had them for at least 10 years. And the bar that goes from the slave to the regular pedal,
Yeah.
I think it needs to be replaced.
Yeah.
Like the ball bearings are not, when it just doesn't move with it. Like it turns.
It's the joint sprain. I replaced my extension bar on the Tama pedal several times. You get a little bit of give in the joints of the pedal, and then you don't get a good response from the slave pedal. So essentially it's useless if you want to play fast music. So you got to replace it and get a fresh bar. That's the only problem with them, you know?
Yeah, I need to do that.
Yeah.
Or just get another new set of pedals, but
Yeah.
this would be a cheap route.
Yeah, well, you know, Christmas is coming up, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to a separate question. What have I got here? Now, this is a good one. Any specific practice techniques that you would use? Like when I don't know how often you can get onto the kit alone without the band. But is there anything that you do in particular when you're practicing alone? Would you use a click, for example?
It's a good question. I don't practice as much as I should. It seems like with my busy life, I only get a chance to practice when I'm working on something specific for a band. Like preparing. Basically, I do what Neil Peart does. I rehearse for rehearsal.
I get you.
Like he does. He rehearses for the rehearsal before the tour, which I think it makes total sense. You want to be prepared as a drummer to go into that rehearsal with the other 4 or 5 guys and not slow things down because you haven't worked on your own parts. So, for me, when I learn music, I listen to it in my vehicle, or if I'm here in my office and working on something, I'll have it in the background, really to absorb what I'm learning first, just to learn the song, especially if it's something I'm not familiar with and I'm learning it for the first time. And then once I've got it kind of absorbed and familiar with the changes, then I'll work on sitting down with it and running through it, just kind of basic. But then I'll start working on the details, like the different fills and intricate patterns. And so that's kind of how my rehearsal goes for anything.
Yeah.
I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, absolutely it does. There's no point in being caught inside in a rehearsal room and the guitar player's looking at you going, you don't know this part. So it is a very effective way to practice. Moving on, any warm-up tips? Anything that you do in your little ritual to get ready to go on stage, for example?
Warm-up? For me, I don't really do a whole lot of warming up as far as like behind a practice kit before a show or anything. I do have something I can take with me, if I feel like I should. Mm-hmm. Most of my warm-up is just stretching. Stretching my fingers for all the ligaments and everything in your forearm, especially if I'm playing death metal with blast beats and double bass. I'm more worried about my forearms being loose for the blasting than I am my legs, but I still stretch out my legs, just do the typical standing, kind of in a
hamstrings.
With the legs stretched out, leaning to one side, really stretching out the hamstrings, and then legs together and leaning down, touching my toes, just kind of holding it. And you never want to bounce. You just kind of just slowly work into it.
Yeah.
And I do that a few times so I feel like it's good and stretched out. And then, of course, like I said, I'll do something I learned from Gene Hoglan, in fact.
Excellent.
Probably on one of his videos or something, where he actually takes each finger and pulls back to so it stretches each individual ligament in the forearm. So I'll do that like that, and then upside down, just kind of taking my hands and just really just stretching that out, just so I don't go into a blast beat in the first song cold. I want to feel that stretch.
Excellent. Good stuff. So it's mainly, you'll do a hamstring stretch. Like, I'm kind of thinking with your ankles, do you do anything would you play the bass drum more from your ankles or from your hip? So basically, would you do anything to warm up the ankle area, or is it once your thighs are warm, you can play your double bass drum the way you need to?
Yeah, well, I'm more of a thigh. I'm definitely heel up. I see a lot of guys that are just super fast. It all comes from their ankles. And I've never really worked on double bass that way. It's always been really more from my thighs, whole leg. I don't do the swivel movement.
Right, that was one of my questions, if you do the swivel movement, but there you answered it now.
That's something that I want to work on because it all makes sense to me. You're getting a hit. That's like one stroke. You're getting 2 hits per stroke. Kind of like the gravity blast.
Or the Muller technique.
Yeah. You're getting 2 for the price of 1.
Yeah, less energy,
So it makes sense to me. It's just not something I've actually sat down and worked on.
I get you.
That or the heel toe thing. I remember the first time I saw the heel toe method, I'm like, oh man, that looks so easy. I think I can do that. And I had actually just borrowed a pair of individual pedal, single pedals from a friend, his Axis longboards, because he was going to sell them. And I had them in my possession. 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm watching. In fact, I'm watching a video from Tim Watterson, I believe, showing the technique. And I'm like, oh man, I can't wait to get up in the morning and try that. And I did, even with these longboards, and it was a lot more difficult than he made it look. He made it look very effortless.
Absolutely.
So, again, I just haven't had time to sit down and work on stuff like that. I want to, but just like with anything, life kind of gets in the way.
Of course. Mm-hmm.
You have to make time for it. If you want to do anything, you have to schedule it. So
you have to want to do it, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on, Brian. Did you ever have any drum lessons as a kid, maybe?
Yes.
Cool.
I took private drum lessons. I'm not sure exactly how old I was. I believe, I know when I was a freshman in high school, I was still taking lessons, and I probably took them a year or 2 before that. So right around 12 or 13, I took private lessons. Prior to that, I was in school band from 5th grade through 10th grade. It was school band, and for me. But like I said, right around 12 years old, so that would be like around 8th grade, 7th or 8th grade. I started taking private lessons from a local guy. He was really more of a jazz drummer.
Wow.
So I learned a lot of jazz stuff and Latin beats, just a lot of the basics, and really how to read the music, which I was already familiar with reading music, so that helped me in my private lessons. And I would just go to his house. He would teach out of his house. And he was an old friend of my dad's, actually, that he's played with.
Okay.
That guy has unfortunately passed on many years ago, but he's very well known, very well respected in the jazz community around here.
Wow.
And
that was your drum teacher. So I'm going to move on to talk a little bit about the bands you currently play in, or the ones that struck me. Number one being those guys on your t-shirt, Solstice.
Yeah.
So the question was, when you were asked to record with Solstice, did you pay attention to what Alex Marquez had previously done with the band, or did you just really hear the music and do your own thing?
A little bit of both.
Right.
Alex has always been someone I respected and was definitely influenced my style. A lot of his fills.
Wow.
Quad fills that he does, and I loved his work on the first Solstice. That's probably still my favorite.
Wow.
Probably followed by the
Retribution.
Retribution album,
Yeah.
and then the Malevolent Creation stuff. But so yeah, knowing his style, knowing the style of Solstice, I definitely kept that and took that into consideration. But of course, my style just comes out naturally in my playing. So I don't know. I mean, I've not really read a whole lot of reviews on that album, on the Two Dust album, to know what others have said. I've not actually seen anybody say like, "Well, Brian doesn't sound like he is, trying to copy Alex,"
No.
or Brian sounds like he's just doing his own thing, not trying to keep with the same Solstice style. I mean, it doesn't bother me either way what people think, but it was just it was really cool to be able to be a part of that. And,
Oh my God, yeah.
So.
Oh, well, I thought, listening to the album, I listened to it last night, and knowing the other album that Alex is on, I think it's the first one. It's the one you were on, Two Dust, yeah. It's a little bit more death metal-y, maybe.
Yeah.
A little bit more blasting. Obviously, slightly different style of vocals, but the production was impeccable.
Yeah.
I might talk a little bit about the drum sound and did you have anything to do with how the drums sounded on the album? As in, do you play a part in mixing the drum tracks? And the other part of that question, is it fair to say that getting a good drum mix starts with how you set up the kit? Or is it more down to Pro Tools and triggers, etc.?
Well, I'll answer your first question. I had nothing to do with the mix, unfortunately, but I knew it was going to be in good hands.
Yeah.
And obviously, just knowing the guys in the band and knowing the history and just knowing what they know, I knew they weren't going to bury me in the mix, and that drums are a big part of death metal. You want to be able to hear every little part. And anymore, it seems like there's so much sound replacement with drums, and I know there was some sound replacement on that album.
Okay.
I think it was just the kick drums, though. I'm pretty sure the toms. I mean, they may have been sound replaced with the same, like when we took samples of each drum.
I hear you.
So they may have been replaced with that, so you're still hearing the same drum tone. But the kicks may be completely replaced with a different, tone. And I know that in the mastering session, that's where it really came to life, and I think that's where most of the sound replacement happened. So I think I did a great job.
I had one interesting question. Let me find it. Sorry now. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. How has your approach to drumming changed throughout the years? No, sorry, wrong question. How has the recording process changed in your time as a drummer? And do you miss the more natural drum sounds of the older recordings? So that's kind of in keeping with the last question.
Yeah. I don't mind sound replacement so much with death metal or metal in general, as long as it sounds real.
Yeah.
I don't, if it sounds like, if it makes me go, listen to it, is that a drum machine or is that a real drummer? Then that's a bad sound replacement, in my opinion. If it sounds natural, then I don't mind it with metal. With other kinds of music, I think it would sound funny. It seems like metal is the only music out there the only genre that uses sound replacement that I know of. I don't know if it happens a lot in just regular modern rock music and pop music.
I doubt it does.
It probably does more than you realize.
All right.
But yeah, I don't mind it. Like I said, I don't mind it. Just as long as it sounds natural. It's nice when when it's a drummer that's not really consistent. Maybe it helps. The end result, the recording to sound like if a drummer has a heavy right foot and a light left foot, then obviously the double bass is going to sound funky.
Yeah.
If it's not sound replaced. I've been told that I'm pretty accurate with my playing, and so that's a good thing. And that's coming from sound engineers, and they usually have issues with some drummers. So
cool.
That's a nice thing to hear, and helps you realize that you're doing something right when it comes to the recording. I don't have a problem with it. Just as long as it sounds natural.
I guess that question is really geared towards extreme metal, where guys are playing really, really fast and it's a more physical thing. I was just wondering, is it because of that, or is it lazy? Is it why spend all this time setting up room mics and tuning the kit perfectly and blah 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 and getting him to play it perfectly when we can just sample sounds in there? Do you think there's an element of that?
Yeah, it seems like it's taken away the human element. I don't mind hearing an album, the drum work from a drummer on an album where it's a little less than perfect. There's the beat detector that lines everything up kind of like the Fear Factory mechanical sound, and that works for them because they kind of created that style, and you expect that anymore. But I'd rather hear just a slight bit looseness from a drummer that I know that he hammered that song from front to back all by himself, rather than it was fixed with Pro Tools.
Dave Lombardo. Basically.
Yeah, like Dave Lombardo,
or Nico.
Handful of other drummers. I mean, I don't know how much even Gene Hoglan has replaced. I would say most of what we hear from his recordings are all him. If you can help it, sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Another question. Your approach to drumming, has it changed throughout the years in how you physically do it as well as your style?
My approach to playing has definitely changed. I've always said that I may have over the years lost a little bit of my speed.
Okay.
Like in the early 90s, mid 90s, I was in my prime as far as speed. I mean, you hear some of that on the Solstice album too, but over the years, I've definitely been able to what's the word I'm looking for? I've just gotten more well-rounded as a player.
Cool.
With different styles and just my finesse around a drum kit with. Back in the day, I was probably doing just 16th note fills in most cases, but now I'm trying to be a little more creative.
Yeah.
And even if it's a similar fill, it's a little more tasteful and fits the song a little bit better than just a,
I hear you.
So I think just over the years, my style has changed and has developed for the better.
Cool.
Really, than
Yeah, cool. I'm kind of at that stage myself where you're like, well, let's just stop for 1 minute and think about the drum fill. How are we going to make it sound interesting rather than doing 16th notes across the toms?
Yeah.
Unless you're blasting and it's a continuous fill,
Yeah. There's certain styles of music or beats and riffs that go together that call for that type of just super fast 16th note, 30-second note fill. But I appreciate a drummer that can come out of a blast and do something unexpected.
Yeah.
That's where I like to be able. I don't like things to be predictable. Of course, I'm sure we're all guilty of being predictable at times, but sometimes it's just because it just fits. It's kind of what expect and it fits the best, but I don't mind a drummer that will throw something unique in there, like Sean Reiner on the Human album from Death. Stuff that, even though he wasn't doing blast beats, he was doing some pretty jazzy, fusion-y style drumming throughout that whole album, but still, it still was still death metal drumming, no doubt, but he threw in his own little style of jazz fusion that you can pick up on real easily.
Cool. The next thing I was going to ask kind of overlaps with that. It was a question I had. Has death metal drumming lost some of its style, individuality and character? Do the modern guys just go for more flat out speed and they all kind of fall under the one banner or whatever? Whereas back in the day you had Donald Tardy, Steve Asheem, Sean Reinhardt, who, well, you could argue that their bands were very different and that's why they played differently, but they were very different drummers. And do you think a little bit of that is lost in the modern death metal scene?
Yeah, I think it's definitely lost because there's so many newer bands coming out with these young drummers who are just phenomenal. Mm-hmm. I mean, their stamina and their speed is just incredible, but they're not very creative because they're playing the same formulaic type beats. I don't know. Maybe they haven't been taught formally and they just know to play 16th notes. But yeah, I think the early guys like Donald Tardy, and Donald's an awesome drummer. Nothing flashy, nothing like technically mind-blowing like George Callias or guys like that. But Donald can groove. He can groove. Absolutely. And that's what makes Obituary's style and sound completely different from anybody else out there. I mean, you hear an Obituary song, whether it's just a riff by itself or as a full band, even without John's vocals in there, and it's Obituary.
Absolutely,
Because Donald just knows how to keep that groove, and that's what's cool about Obituary. They never jumped on the blast beat bandwagon, and I'm glad they didn't because it would completely take away from the style that they're known for.
It would kill the groove a little bit, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That aggressive groove, a little bit. How are you for time, Brian? Are you okay for time?
I'm good, man.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Just something about the other bands that you recorded with, a lot of power metal bands. How did you come into contact with the likes of Firewind? Because they're Greek, to the best of my knowledge, you just recorded one album with them. And, how did you come in contact with these guys? Was it a thing where they sent you tapes and you recorded in America? Or did you go meet the band? Was everybody in the studio together? Or how did that go down?
Okay. Actually got that recording through David Chastain, guitarist David Chastain that owns Leviathan Records. For those that are watching this interview and don't know who David Chastain is, he's basically just a shredder guitarist, well known in that genre. But he owns Leviathan Records, which was a big label back in the 90s and even early 2000s. But I'm not really sure what's going on with the label now. But through him, that's how I got that gig to record with Firewind. Because before Firewind was Firewind, Gus G was just doing his own thing, and I'm guessing that he contacted David Chastain, knowing that his label was a kind of a guitar shredding based label.
Gotcha.
So David saw huge potential in Gus, and was like, wow, this young guy is pretty amazing. And I'm sure Gus probably had Firewind demos back then. So how it went down was I had already done some recordings for Leviathan Records, and with David, actually, a band called Xanister. So he already knew my abilities. So when the Firewind thing came about, he contacted me and said, "Would you like to do this album?" And I was like, "Of course." So I recorded my drums separately. I've not even met Gus, unfortunately. So it was just me in the studio with with just really guitar tracks. I don't believe there were any vocals on the album yet on the demo, which I prefer. I like to have vocals, so I know kind of the direction of the song.
Yeah.
I know where vocals are going to be and where they're not going to be. So
because
when I have an opportunity to kind of go off a little bit,
yeah.
I can do that without stepping on the vocals.
Exactly.
And so it's kind of guesswork when you don't. But that music, I'm not going to call it formulaic, but you can kind of tell where there's a verse and there's a chorus, and So, and actually, I think David Chastain knew exactly where the verses and choruses were going to be, and where the lead sections were going to be if there weren't any leads in there yet. So he was able to kind of guide me in there.
Excellent.
So he sat in the control room as kind of the producer of the drum section, and so that's how all that came about.
Good stuff. Excellent. The other one from Finland, Kensinger.
Yeah.
Was it a similar deal where you recorded separately? Because they're from Finland, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I've not met Jarno, and yeah, just same type of setup.
Same deal, yeah.
I didn't record them at the same studio, but yeah, same thing. It was just me, and I don't believe David Chastain was in the studio with me.
Okay.
Pretty positive he wasn't, but he might have. It's been so long ago, I don't really recall. But
yeah.
So it was just me and the guitar tracks, recording to, and of course, a click track to go along with it, keep me in time. But
brilliant. Okay, we'll wrap up soon enough, Brian. I've just a couple of quick fire questions for you.
Okay.
All right. You have to give a quick answer. They're very simple. All right. You've got to choose one of these drummers, either or. Okay.
Okay.
Nico or Clive Burr?
Gotta go with Nico.
Okay. Gareth Samuelson or Nick Menza? Megadeth.
Yeah. I've never been a huge Megadeth fan, so I don't really have a good opinion, but I would say probably Gar.
Okay.
What's his name? Gar?
Gareth Samuelson, yeah. He was more jazzy. He was a little more jazzy.
I like familiar Megadeth more than anything.
Cool. Lombardo or Bostov?
Lombardo.
Cool. Vinny Appice or Bill Ward, the Black Sabbath guys?
I'll go with Bill.
Okay.
Yeah.
So two guys that worked with Rob Halford, Bobby Jarzombek or Scott Travis? The Judas.
Man, that's a hard one. Well, seeing that I got to just hang out with Bobby and watch him play with Fates Warning a couple weeks ago, I'll have to go with Bobby. Technically speaking, I think he's a better drummer.
He probably is, yeah.
But Scott Travis he's a powerhouse.
Oh, he's awesome. All right, I don't know if you like AC/DC. Chris Slade, Phil Rudd, or Simon Wright?
I don't know a lot of AC/DC to really have a good opinion on that, and I couldn't pick out one drummer from the other as far as hearing the music.
It's okay.
Probably Phil Rudd. That's really the name I know the most.
The best, okay. Morbid Angel, Tim Young or Pete Sandoval?
Oh, definitely Pete.
Okay. Howie on Napalm Death? Mick Harris or Danny Herrera?
Oh, man.
Just choose one, Brian.
Well, I know these are supposed to be short answers. Mick, just, he had that style that was undeniable. Hearing that skank beat.
Yeah, kind of grindy, punky.
But he was kind of sloppy. I mean that with all due respect, but it kind of gave them that sound. But Danny is definitely a tighter drummer.
Oh, man.
So that's a really hard one to go. My favorite Napalm Death album is Utopia Vanished.
So you're going to pick Mick.
So we'll go Danny.
Oh, Danny is on that, is he?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus, my bad. I thought he wasn't. Okay, the Nile guys. Derek Roddy or George Collios?
Man, I love both those guys. They're both it's hard to determine who is.
Pick the American guy.
I've followed Derek Roddy more than I have Callias, but after seeing some Callias videos here recently, in the last few years, man, he's mind blowing. But I'll go with Roddy.
Okay, you're going to go with the American guy. Okay.
I think it's American just because I know his playing more than, you know.
Callias. Okay, next one is classic rock drummers. What's his name? John Bonham or Ian Pace?
Ooh, Ian.
Okay.
I mean, I just like his playing. He just, they're both great drummers, but Ian, yeah.
Dave Weckl or Virgil Donati?
Really?
Yeah, I matched them up so you'd have difficulty choosing.
Oh, man. You know what? I'm going to have to go with Weckl because I've known of his playing a lot longer than Virgil, and he is a huge influence on my playing when it comes to like fusion and
Cool.
that style.
Excellent.
Man, Virgil is a beast.
Mm-hmm.
That's a hard one to pick, but I'll go with Weckl.
Okay. Jeff Porcaro or Simon Phillips?
Whew. Man, I like both those guys.
Yeah.
Probably Jeff.
Okay. Randy Castillo or Tommy Aldridge? Both work with Ozzy. Tommy, okay.
That's an easy one, yeah, Tommy.
Phil Taylor or Mickey D, the Motorhead guys?
Oh, Mickey D all the way.
Okay. Tony Laureano or John Longstreth, the Angel Corps guys?
John Longstreth, for sure.
Here's one for you, because I know you do a couple of Tin Lizzy covers. Cozy Powell or Brian Downey?
Cozy.
Okay. Here's one for you. Alex Marquez or Brian Harris?
Alex Marquez all the way.
Brilliant. That concludes the interview, Brian. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for doing it, and great answers, and we'll get it up online soon. So I'm going to knock the camcorder off.